Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another recap video. In today's recap video, Dark Knight Films host Matt Spease ranks all 9 of the Hammer Productions Dracula films, starring the likes of Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Veronica Carlson, Barbara Shelley, Andrew Keir, Suzan Farmer, Caroline Monroe, and Michael Gough. Now, starting at number 9, we have The Brides of Dracula from 1960. Directed by Terence Fisher, the film stars Peter Cushing, David Peel, Freda Jackson, Yvonne Manlor, Andre Melly, and Martina Hunt. The film is a sequel to the 1958 film Horror of Dracula, also known as simply Dracula in the UK, though the character of Count Dracula does not appear in the film and is instead mentioned only twice. Now, coming in at number 8, we have The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires from 1974. This is a martial arts horror film directed by Roy Ward Baker. The film opens in 1804, when 7 vampires clad in gold masks are resurrected by Count Dracula, played by John Forbes Robertson. A century later, Professor Van Helsing, Peter Cushing, known in the world for his exploits with Dracula, is recruited by a man and his 7 siblings after giving a lecture at a Chinese university to take on the vampires. The film is a British-Hong Kong co-production between Hammer Film Productions and Shaw Brothers Studio. Unfortunately, coming in at number 7, we have The Satanic Rights of Dracula from 1973. This is a British horror film directed by Alan Gibson and is the 8th film in Hammer's Dracula series and the 7th and final one to feature Christopher Lee as Dracula. The film was also the 3rd to unite Peter Cushing as Van Helsing with Lee, following War of Dracula 1958 and Dracula AD 1972. Coming in at number 6, we have Scars of Dracula from 1970. Directed by Roy Ward Baker, it stars Christopher Lee as Count Dracula, along with Dennis Waterman, Jenny Hanley, Patrick Troughton, and Michael Gwynn. Although disparaged by some critics, the film does restore a few elements of Bram Stoker's original character. The Count is introduced as an icily charming host. He has command over nature, and he is seen scaling the walls of his castle. It also gives Lee more to do and say than any other Hammer Dracula film, except his first, 1958's Horror of Dracula. Coming in at number 5, we have Taste the Blood of Dracula from 1970. Directed by Peter Sasti from a script by Anthony Hines, it is the 5th installment in Hammer's Dracula series, and the 4th to star Christopher Lee as Count Dracula, although his screen time in this one is highly limited. The film also features Anthony Corlin, Linda Hayden, Jeffrey Keane, Ralph Bates, Peter Salas, John Carson, Isla Blair, Gwen Watford, Roy Kinnear, and Michael Ripper. Coming in at number 4, we have Dracula AD 1972 from 1972. Directed by Alan Gibson, it was written by Don Houghton and stars Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Stephanie Beacham, and Christopher Neame. Unlike earlier films in Hammer's Dracula series, this film had a contemporary setting in an attempt to update the Dracula story for modern audiences. Dracula is brought back to life in modern 1970s London and preys on a group of young partygoers that includes the descendant of his nemesis, Van Helsing. At number 3, we have Dracula Has Risen from the Grave from 1968. Directed by Freddie Francis, it is the 4th entry in Hammer's Dracula series and the 3rd to feature Christopher Lee as Count Dracula, the titular vampire. The film stars Rupert Davies as a clergyman who exorcises Dracula's castle and in doing so unwittingly resurrects the Count back from the dead. It also stars Veronica Carlson, Barry Andrews, Barbara Ewing, Ewan Hooper, and Michael Ripper. Coming in at number 2, we have Horror of Dracula from 1958, also known as Dracula in the UK. Directed by Terence Fisher and written by Jimmy Sangster, based on Bram Stoker's 1897 novel of the same name. This was the first in the series of Hammer horror films starring Christopher Lee as Count Dracula. The film also features Peter Cushing as Dr. Van Helsing, along with Michael Gough, Melissa Stribling, Carol Marsh, and John Van Eysen. In the United States, the film was retitled Horror of Dracula to avoid confusion with the U.S. original by Universal Pictures, 1931's Dracula. And coming in at number 1, we have Dracula, Prince of Darkness from 1966, directed by Terence Fisher. The film is the 3rd entry in Hammer's Dracula series, as well as the 2nd to feature Christopher Lee as Count Dracula, the titular vampire. Although in this film, Lee doesn't utter a single line of dialogue, it also stars Andrew Keir, Francis Matthews, and Barbara Shelley. Thank you for checking out this recap video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that bell icon to be notified of future videos, just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, go ahead and click the join button and become a Dark Knight fan. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.